"Do not drink the water." Those were the words painted across the massive steel drums, bold black letters etched over rust and dust, a warning written by men who believed their creations could never be touched. They thought fear would be enough to keep the world away. They thought wrong, because when humanity is pushed to the edge of extinction, fear stops working. The year was 2074, and the earth had become a graveyard of parched soil and fractured nations. Wars weren't fought for oil anymore. Those days seemed almost childish compared to now. No, the new currency of power was water. Clean water. And whoever controlled it controlled the world. But somewhere deep beneath the ruins of an abandoned weapons facility, we found something that was never meant to be found. At first, it looked like nothing more than industrial tanks stacked in rows, each one sealed with layers of locks, warning signs, and the faded insignia of a government long collapsed. The air around them buzzed faintly, like static electricity before a lightning strike. And inside those drums, a liquid shimmered like blue fire, glowing faintly in the dark. It wasn't water. It was Hydro-9, a weapon designed not to quench thirst, but to end civilizations. Decades earlier, scientists had learned how to manipulate hydrogen bonds at the molecular level, fusing energy into water itself. The result was a liquid so unstable it could level cities when ignited. Nations had spent trillions to make it, but in the end, they feared its power too much to use it. So they buried it, hid it, pretended it never existed, until we stumbled upon it. We weren't soldiers. We weren't scientists. We were survivors, scavengers who dug through ash and bones just to make it to another sunrise. But the moment we stood in front of those drums, every one of us knew we weren't looking at simple survival anymore. We were looking at something bigger. "Is it safe?" one of us whispered. "No," I said, and I was right. The first accident happened within minutes. A pipe, brittle with age, cracked under the weight of our curiosity. A stream of glowing liquid spilled onto the floor, pooling like melted sapphire. We stepped back, but not far enough. The air itself seemed to vibrate, and in that vibration was a voice or maybe just the echo of our own fear. Then something even stranger happened. The puddle didn't burn. It didn't explode. It sat there, shimmering like a living thing. And as we stared at it, every throat in that room grew dry, every mouth desperate. It was hunger, thirst, craving all at once. My lips cracked. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. It was as though the liquid itself was calling us, demanding us to drink. "Don't even think about it," I warned. But warnings are fragile things when desperation takes over. That night, I lay awake in the facility, staring at the locked drums, listening to the sound of the liquid humming inside like a living heart. I thought about the history buried in those tanks, about scientists who had poured their genius into destruction, never once thinking what might happen if their creation touched human blood. The next morning, when I woke, one of us was gone. We found him near the cracked pipe, his lips stained faintly blue, his eyes rolled back in his head. For a moment I thought he was dead. His chest wasn't moving. His skin was pale. But then he gasped, a violent, shuddering breath that echoed through the empty chamber. When his eyes opened, they weren't the same. They glowed faintly, like twin shards of sapphire reflecting the hidden light in the drums. "What did you do?" I shouted, pulling him back. He looked at me with something between terror and exhilaration. I drank it." The silence after those words was heavier than the air in the bunker. His veins pulsed with faint blue light, crawling like lightning beneath his skin. He stumbled, clutched his chest, then stood straighter than I'd ever seen him. His breathing slowed. His posture shifted. He looked stronger. But strength wasn't all that came. His scream was the first sign. It started low, then rose into a sound that made our bones ache. His body convulsed, his hands clawing at the ground. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. He stood, perfectly still, perfectly calm, and he smiled. Not the smile of a man at peace. Not relief. Not joy. The smile of someone who had touched something forbidden and survived. "Do you feel it?" he whispered. "It's alive in me." The others stared, torn between awe and horror. Some saw salvation in him. Others saw a monster. But I saw the truth. This wasn't a man anymore. This was a weapon walking in human skin. And as I watched his glowing eyes, I realized something that turned my stomach cold. If one sip could do this, what would happen if we all drank? Don't touch him. The words left my mouth before I could even think. But it was too late. Two of our crew were already stepping closer, their curiosity burning brighter than their fear. They looked at him like he was something holy, something worth worshipping. And in a way, he was. He stood taller than before, his body trembling with raw power. Veins of glowing blue pulsed beneath his skin like living rivers, threading into every muscle, every joint. His eyes darted between us with unnatural sharpness, as though he could see every heartbeat, every drop of sweat on our skin. He wasn't just stronger, he was changed. I can hear it, he whispered, his voice unsteady, almost layered, like two voices overlapping. The liquid, it's talking. None of us dared to move. The bunker felt like a tomb, the silence pressing down, broken only by the faint hum of the drums surrounding us. What's it saying? One of us asked, though we already regretted the question. He grinned faintly. It says, "We're meant to drink." The words cut through us like a knife. Don't be stupid, I snapped. That's poison. It was built to kill, not save. But my voice cracked, and I knew they heard it, because deep down, a small, gnawing part of me wanted to believe him. What if the Hydra weapon wasn't just destruction? What if it could be rebirth? Then it happened. He moved, not like a man, not like anything human. 1 second he was standing near the cracked pipe, and the next he was across the room, standing inches from my face. No footsteps, no warning, just speed. My chest locked, my pulse hammering. The others gasped, stumbling back. See? He whispered. I'm not dying. I'm evolving. And then, just as quickly, he collapsed. His body hit the ground hard, convulsing violently. Foam bubbled at the edges of his lips, and his glowing veins flickered, dimming as though the light inside him was fading. His hands clawed at the air, reaching for something unseen. We all froze. None of us knew what to do. Help him, someone screamed. But how? What do you do when a man's blood is boiling with liquid fire? I pressed my hand against his chest, desperate to keep him anchored. But the moment I touched him, heat surged through me. Not burning heat. Something else. An energy that hummed beneath my skin, like a wild animal pacing in its cage. I jerked my hand back, terrified. And then he stopped. His chest rose once more. His breathing steadied. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself to his knees. His eyes glowed brighter now, steady, like lanterns in the dark. And he smiled again. This time it wasn't madness. It wasn't terror. It was certainty. I told you, he said, his voice calm, smooth. We were meant to drink. Silence fell over us. None of us dared to argue, because the proof was right in front of us. A man who should be dead, standing stronger than ever. That night, no one slept. We sat in a circle in the bunker, our eyes shifting constantly between the glowing tanks and the man who had drunk from them. He paced back and forth, restless, like his body was too alive to sit still. Sparks of faint blue energy flickered around his hands when he clenched his fists. And the whispers were real. At least that's what he swore. It's in all of us, he said, pointing at each of us with trembling hands. The liquid knows. It knows who we are, what we crave. Called me. And now it's calling you. Some of the crew looked away. Others couldn't stop staring at the drums, their throats tightening at the thought. Hunger, thirst, temptation. It was worse than starvation because this wasn't survival of the body, it was survival of the soul. I wanted to scream, to shake them and remind them what this stuff really was. A weapon of mass death, a curse written in liquid form. But the more I tried to deny it, the louder the whispers became in my own head. Drink. The word echoed in my mind like a drumbeat. Drink. I shut my eyes, clenched my fists, tried to block it out. But even then, I couldn't deny the truth. Some part of me wanted to obey. The breaking point came at dawn. One of the younger scavengers, barely 16, crept toward the cracked pipe while the rest of us dozed in exhaustion. I woke to the faint splash of liquid, the sound of lips gulping desperately. "Stop!" I roared, rushing forward. But it was too late. The boy coughed, gagged, and collapsed. His small body convulsed on the floor, glowing veins spreading faster, harsher than the first man. His eyes rolled back, and he screamed, a scream that split the bunker in two. And then silence. He rose slowly, shaking, his eyes blazing with blue fire. But unlike the first man, his face wasn't calm. It was twisted, racked with pain. He staggered forward, his mouth foaming, his chest heaving. "Help me!" he screamed. His voice was raw, torn. "It's burning me alive." We tried to hold him down, but the strength in his small frame was monstrous. He threw two of us aside like we were paper. The glow spread across his body faster, brighter, until his skin looked as if it were made of glass, and beneath it pure light. And then he froze, every muscle locked. His eyes widened. For a moment he was a statue carved in sapphire light. And then he exploded. A shockwave of blue energy ripped through the bunker, sending us sprawling against the steel walls. Sparks flew. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The cracked pipe shattered, spilling more liquid across the floor. When the light faded, there was nothing left of him. Only silence. And in that silence, the first man, our first drinker, smiled through the haze. His glowing eyes burned into mine as he whispered, almost reverently, "Not all of us are chosen." The bunker smelled of ozone and ash. Dust still hung in the air like smoke after a battlefield, settling in our lungs, clinging to our skin. Where the boy had stood, there was nothing. No body, no bone, just a scorched outline burned into the steel floor. And yet, somehow the liquid kept glowing. It seeped from the shattered pipe in small rivulets, glimmering like veins of molten sapphire. The puddles pulsed faintly, almost like they were breathing, alive. Every eye in the room was fixed on them, but no one dared step closer. Not after what we'd just seen. The boy's death silenced us. For the first time since finding Hydro 9, the whispers in my head were drowned out by fear. This wasn't salvation, it was roulette. One sip could grant power, another could erase you from existence. The first man, the survivor, was the only one who looked unshaken. He crouched near the glowing puddles, his eyes reflecting their light, hungry. "You saw it," he said softly. "He wasn't chosen, but I was." "Chosen for what?" I snapped, the edge in my voice sharper than I intended. "To burn from the inside? To turn into something not even human anymore?" He smiled faintly, his glowing veins pulsing brighter as if in response. "To evolve. To carry what the rest of you are too afraid to touch." No one answered him, because part of us deep down feared he was right. The hours that followed changed everything. At first, his strength seemed manageable. He moved faster, thought quicker, reacted sharper. But then, stranger things began to happen. His body radiated faint heat, like standing too close to a fire. Objects trembled when he walked past, vibrating as if pulled by some invisible current. Once, when frustration overtook him, he clenched his fist, and the steel plate beneath his hand bent inward with a groan. The others stared at him in awe. I stared at him in terror. "Do you feel pain?" one of us asked. He tilted his head, considering. "Not like before. The hunger, the weakness, it's gone. But there's something else. A cost." "What kind of cost?" He didn't answer right away. But that night, I heard him screaming. Not like before, not in agony, this was different. It was rage, raw and violent, tearing from his throat like thunder. I rushed toward the sound, only to stop short when I saw him. He was on his knees, clutching his head, his veins blazing like rivers of fire. His eyes flickered wildly, blue one second, white the next. He slammed his fists against the ground, denting steel as though it were paper. "Get it out of me," he bellowed. "The voices, they won't stop." We tried to calm him, but his body was beyond restraint. One swing of his arm hurled two of us across the bunker, slamming them into the wall. He was stronger than ever, but broken. And then, just as suddenly as it started, he stilled. His breathing slowed. His eyes dimmed back to their unnatural blue. He looked at us, no, through us. "It wants something," he whispered. "The liquid. It's not just energy. It's alive." The words left us colder than the steel walls around us. Alive. That night no one dared drink. No one dared even approach the puddles. But the temptation lingered, stronger now, because the proof was right there. Power, undeniable, real. The whispers returned too, louder than before. They didn't just say drink. They said more. They murmured promises, threats, secrets about us we never told anyone. It was like the Hydro 9 reached into our minds and twisted what it found, feeding our desires and fears. Some resisted. Others started to crack. By the third day, our group was divided. 3 of us swore never to touch it. We saw the boy's death as proof that Hydro 9 was a curse, a trap laid by the old world to punish the desperate. 2 others whispered at night, glancing at the puddles like starving wolves watching a bleeding lamb. And then there was me. I told myself I'd never drink. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the survivor's glowing veins, his impossible strength. I remembered the boy's explosion too, yes, but some wicked part of me thought maybe I'd be different. Maybe I'd survive. The thought was poison, and yet, I couldn't stop thinking it. The breaking point came with the storm. It rolled in from the east, shaking the ground, howling through the crumbled ruins above us. Rainwater leaked through cracks in the ceiling, dripping into the bunker. And when it mixed with the puddles of Hydro 9, the glow spread. The entire floor lit up in veins of sapphire, glowing brighter with every drop of rain. The hum grew louder, vibrating in our bones. And then it spoke. Not whispers, not echoes. A voice, clear and thunderous, filling the chamber. Drink, become, or be nothing. We froze, paralyzed. The survivor fell to his knees, trembling, his glowing veins pulsing faster, brighter. Tears streaked down his face as he lifted his hands toward the drums like a man worshipping gods. "You hear it too," he shouted, almost sobbing. "Tell me you hear it." We all did, and that was the most terrifying part. The others backed away, shaking their heads. But one of the hungry ones, stepped forward. His eyes burned with need, with desperation, with something darker. He bent down, scooped a handful of glowing water, and raised it to his lips. "Stop!" I shouted, but the word came too late. He drank. His body jerked violently, his eyes rolling back as he collapsed into the glowing puddle. The light swallowed him whole, brighter, blinding, until the bunker itself seemed to tremble with fury. And then silence. The puddle where he'd fallen was empty. He was gone. Not burned. Not exploded. Just erased. We stared in horror. And then, slowly, the survivor, our first drinker, turned toward us with a smile. "They're choosing now," he said. His voice was calm, steady, certain. "And they've chosen me." The rain stopped, but the glow didn't. For hours after the storm, the bunker remained alive with pulsing veins of Hydro 9, the light shimmering across steel walls, flickering like veins of lightning trapped underground. None of us slept. None of us spoke. We just sat there, staring at the glowing survivor, the only one who had drunk and lived without burning or vanishing. His voice was steady now, calm, almost priest-like. "They've chosen me," he repeated like a mantra. "And they'll choose more, when the time is right." But that was the moment I realized something chilling. We weren't the only ones who knew about Hydro 9 anymore. It began with the hum. Not the liquid's hum, the other one. Mechanical, distant, a low vibration rolling through the walls, shaking the rusted pipes. We froze, heads snapping toward the sound. Then came the rumble of engines. Heavy, coordinated, military. "They found us," I whispered. The others panicked instantly, voices clashing, hands trembling. "Who? How?" "The government that built this," Some scavenger warlord who had sniffed out our discovery? It didn't matter. Whoever they were armed and we weren't. The survivor smiled, his veins glowing faintly brighter. Let them come. The first explosion tore the steel door from its hinges, slamming it inward with a deafening shriek. Dust rained from the ceiling, and in stormed shadows, men in armored suits, masks covering their faces, rifles glowing with attached energy cells. Their movements were sharp, practiced, deadly. Down on the ground! One of them barked, his voice booming through a voice amplifier. We didn't move. Fear glued us in place. The survivor, though, he stepped forward. Calm, confident. I wouldn't do that, he said, his voice carrying an unnatural echo. The soldiers froze. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the leader scoffed. Contain him. They rushed, but they never reached him. The survivor's body blurred. One moment still, the next a streak of blue light. He collided with the first soldier, sending him flying into the wall with bone-crushing force. Sparks exploded from his shattered armor. The others fired, blue streaks of plasma cutting through the bunker. He moved faster than their bullets. He was a storm of fists, a blur of glowing veins. One soldier screamed as his weapon was torn in half, another as his mask was ripped away, revealing terrified eyes before a glowing hand crushed his helmet. We should have been relieved. He was protecting us, right? But the way he smiled, the way his glowing veins pulsed brighter with every strike, it wasn't protection. It was hunger. He was enjoying this. We crouched in the shadows, covering our heads as plasma fire cut through the room. One of us, a woman named Juno, clutched my arm, her eyes wide. This isn't right, she hissed. He's not saving us. He's killing everything. She was right. For every soldier that fell, he grew stronger, faster, almost drunk on their destruction. His laughter echoed through the chamber, sharp and wrong. And then I saw it. The liquid glowing brighter across the floor, pulsing in rhythm with him, as if it was feeding off his violence, as if it wanted this. More soldiers poured in, heavier units this time, shields raised. But even they hesitated when they saw the glowing figure standing in the center of the room, blood and sparks dripping from his hands. Fall back, one shouted. But retreat wasn't possible. He was already among them. The battle lasted minutes. The silence after lasted forever. Bodies littered the floor, armored husks cracked open like broken shells. The survivor stood in the middle of it all, breathing steady, his veins glowing brighter than ever. His eyes flicked toward us. And in that moment, I knew something terrifying. He wasn't ours anymore. Later, when the echoes of battle faded, we gathered in the far corner of the bunker. Whispers filled the air. Fear, panic, blame. They followed us here, Juno said bitterly. We should have destroyed it the second we found it. No, another argued. He saved us. If it wasn't for him, we'd be dead like them. I stayed silent, but my mind spun with questions. Who were those soldiers? Were they trying to destroy Hydro 9? Or protect it? And if they failed tonight, would more be coming tomorrow? The worst question of all lingered at the edge of my thoughts. Had they come for us? Or for him? That night, as we tried to rest in the aftermath of blood and ruin, I felt eyes on me. I turned and saw him watching from the shadows, his faintly glowing eyes locked onto mine. You don't trust me, he said quietly. I didn't answer. He stepped closer, and the light from his veins brushed across my face. You think I'm losing myself, that I'm becoming something else. Still, I didn't answer. He smiled faintly. Maybe you're right, but without me, you'd all be dead already. His words were sharp because they were true, and yet, something in his tone made my skin crawl. The next morning, we found one of our crew missing. Juno. Her sleeping mat was empty. Her pack was gone. No note, no trail, nothing. But the steel door was left cracked open. And deep in the distance, beyond the ruins, I thought I saw a faint light, blue, glowing, moving away. Had she betrayed us? Or had she been taken? The survivor only smirked when we told him. She made her choice, he said coldly. And by sunrise, one of us will too. Juno was gone. Her mat lay cold, her bag missing, and the steel door of the bunker stood cracked open like a wound. We searched for tracks, for signs of struggle, but there was nothing. Only the faint echo of her absence hanging in the stale air. She left us. One of the scavengers muttered bitterly. Ran the second she thought things got too dangerous. No, I said, shaking my head. Juno wasn't a coward. If she left, there was a reason. The survivor, our glowing miracle, only smirked, leaning against the wall, his veins pulsing faintly with light. You waste time with weaklings. She made her choice. Forget her. His casual dismissal made something twist in my chest. This was Juno, the one who had pulled us out of collapsed tunnels, who had given up her share of food for the youngest among us, who had whispered plans of rebuilding something better when all seemed lost. She wouldn't abandon us. Not willingly. But there was no time to argue. The next night we found her. It was a trap, of course. The soldiers who had stormed the bunker before weren't finished with us. They'd taken her, used her, dangled her as bait. We stumbled into their ambush in the ruins above, the air still heavy with the smell of rain-soaked ash. Juno was tied to a steel post, her face bruised, her eyes blazing with defiance even as soldiers surrounded her. Lay down your weapons, their commander barked. Step away from the girl, and we'll let you live. Weapons. The word was almost funny. We had nothing but rusted pipes and scraps of metal. Except him, our living weapon. The survivor stepped forward, his glowing veins pulsing brighter with every stride. You think you can stop me? He growled. The commander didn't flinch. We don't need to stop you. We just need to stop them. His rifle jerked toward us, the rest of the group. My stomach twisted. They weren't here for Hydro 9 anymore. They were here to erase anyone who had touched it. Anyone who knew. The air thickened with the weight of choice. And then it shattered. The survivor blurred into motion, a streak of glowing light. Soldiers screamed as he tore through their line, bodies crumpling like paper. Plasma fire lit up the ruins, scorching stone and steel. We dove for cover, dragging Juno down as bullets hissed overhead. The ground shook with every impact of his fists, every violent collision of Hydro 9-fueled rage against armored men. But the soldiers weren't unprepared this time. They had something new. Cannons loaded with shimmering rounds that pulsed the same eerie blue as the survivor's veins. One fired. The blast hit him square in the chest. His body jerked violently, glowing brighter, flickering like a dying star. For the first time since drinking, he screamed. Not in rage, but in agony. They've weaponized it, Juno gasped, clutching her ropes. They made Hydro 9 rounds. The survivor staggered, his skin flickering with cracks of light. For a second, I thought he would collapse. But then his eyes blazed, and with a roar that shook the ruins, he charged again. We tried to escape in the chaos, but Juno, always Juno, refused to run. No, she said, yanking free from her bindings. If we leave him, we'll never survive the next wave. They'll keep coming. Someone has to stop them now. Her words chilled me. Juno, don't. But she was already moving. She sprinted toward one of the glowing cannons, ducking plasma fire, her body a blur of desperation. She slammed into the soldier manning it, grabbing the cannon's trigger. The blast ripped through 3 men at once, shredding them into dust. Run! She screamed. We did. We had no choice. But when I looked back, when I saw her standing there, firing again and again until the glow consumed her, I knew she wasn't coming with us. The final blast hit the cannon itself. Light swallowed her. The shockwave tore through the ruins, flinging us into the dirt. When the dust cleared, there was nothing left of Juno but the scorched remains of the weapon she had turned against them. We buried nothing. We carried nothing. We only remembered. The survivor stood apart from us as we huddled in the dark that night, his glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. He didn't speak of her, didn't mourn. He only whispered to himself, words none of us could quite hear. But I felt the truth pressing on us like a weight. Hydro 9 didn't just kill or grant power, it chose. and in choosing, it demanded sacrifice. That night, as I lay awake listening to the survivors' murmurs, something strange happened. The puddles of hydronine we had carried in scavenged flasks began to glow on their own, brighter than before. And in that glow I heard a whisper. Not in my mind this time, but aloud. One life for many. One death for awakening. Juno's sacrifice wasn't meaningless. It was a door, and Hydro-9 had just opened it. The survivor turned toward me suddenly, his veins pulsing like fire. His lips curved into a smile too wide, too certain. "You feel it too, don't you?" he said softly. "It's in you now, in all of us." Her death woke it up. My skin prickled with cold, because for the first time since all this began, I realized he was right. Something inside me was stirring. The world didn't stay quiet after Juno's sacrifice. News of the Ruins massacre spread faster than fire in dry grass. Survivors whispered of glowing figures tearing through soldiers. Warlords spoke of liquid light that turned men into gods or monsters. And governments, fractured as they were, began to stir like sleeping giants. Hydro-9 was no longer a buried secret. It was a war waiting to ignite. We moved constantly after that night, traveling through broken cities and wastelands. Every step carried the weight of Juno's absence, but every glance at the survivor's glowing veins reminded us of her choice. Her death had awakened something inside us. And not just metaphorically. Started small. My hearing sharpened. I could hear things others couldn't. The hum of electricity in long-dead wires, the faint drip of leaking pipes miles away. Then came strength. When rubble collapsed on one of the crew, I lifted it off like it was wood instead of concrete. The others noticed their own changes too. One claimed she no longer needed food. Another swore his wounds healed faster. The whispers were back, stronger than ever, guiding us, tempting us. We hadn't drunk the liquid, not fully, but Juno's sacrifice had bound us to it all the same. And that terrified me. The survivor embraced it. At night, he stood on rooftops, staring at the horizon, his body glowing faintly in the dark like a lighthouse. "They're coming," he would whisper. "All of them. Nations, armies, scavengers. They'll fight over Hydro-9 like dogs over scraps. And us?" I asked one night, unable to hold it back. He smiled faintly. "We're not scraps. We're the fire." The attack came at dawn. We were camped in the shell of an old factory when the ground began to tremble. First, I thought it was another storm. But then came the metallic groan of engines, the grind of treads, the steady rhythm of boots. We rushed to the shattered windows and froze. An army. Hundreds of soldiers marched across the ruins, armored and armed, flanked by towering vehicles that hummed with the same eerie blue glow as Hydro-9 rounds. Drones swarmed overhead like steel insects, their red eyes scanning every shadow. "They know we're here," someone whispered. "No," I said, my chest tightening. "They're not here for us. They're here for it." But even as I said it, I realized the truth. To them, we were it. The factory erupted in chaos as the first drones dived, spraying plasma fire. We scattered, ducking behind broken machinery. Sparks rained from the ceiling, smoke filling our lungs. "Move!" I shouted. "Find cover!" The others ran, but the survivor didn't. He stood in the open, his veins blazing like molten rivers. His laughter echoed across the factory as he leapt into the swarm of drones, tearing them from the sky with his bare hands. Explosions lit up the dawn like fireworks. The soldiers charged, rifles blazing. Plasma bolts hissed past me, scorching metal. I ducked behind a shattered wall, pulling one of the younger scavengers with me. My blood roared in my ears, my senses sharper than ever. And then I moved. Not just moved, blurred. One moment I was crouched behind cover. The next, I was behind a soldier, my hands gripping his weapon. With a single twist, I snapped it in half. He spun, eyes wide, but I was faster. My fist sent him sprawling into the dirt. I froze, staring at my glowing hands. I had become one of them. The battle turned into a storm of chaos, Hydro-9 fueled power against Hydro-9 made weapons. For every soldier who fell, 2 more seemed to take their place. The survivor cut through them like a living blade, but even he began to falter under the weight of endless fire. "They'll never stop," one of the crew screamed, ducking plasma bolts. "They don't need to," the survivor growled, his eyes blazing. "They just need to wear us down." And then he said the words that made my stomach drop. "There's only one way to end this." He broke from cover, sprinting toward one of the massive glowing tanks mounted on a vehicle. Plasma bolts tore into him, but he didn't slow. His body glowed brighter, hotter, until I thought he might explode where he stood. I realized what he was doing. He was going to drink again. "Stop!" I screamed, but my voice was lost in the roar of battle. He ripped open the tank, the blue liquid spilling across his hands. And without hesitation, he raised it to his lips and drank. The effect was immediate. His body convulsed violently, light ripping through his skin, blinding. His scream was raw, inhuman, shaking the ground itself. Soldiers froze, terrified, as the glow spread across his body until he was nothing but a figure of fire and light. And then he stopped. His chest heaved once, twice. He lifted his head, and when his eyes opened, they weren't blue anymore. They were white, blinding. "Too much," one of the crew whispered in horror. "He drank too much." He turned toward us, his body trembling, energy bleeding from every pore. The ground cracked beneath his feet, the air shimmering with heat. And for the first time since this all began, I wasn't sure if he was still human at all. He raised his hand, and the world seemed to shiver. "We end it now," he said, his voice layered, distorted, almost godlike. "Even if it destroys us all. Run!" I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the roar of collapsing earth. The survivor, no, the thing he had become, stood at the center of the battlefield, glowing brighter than the rising sun. Every breath he took cracked the ground. Every step sent shockwaves rippling through the ruins. Soldiers who had been so merciless moments ago now dropped their weapons and fled, their courage dissolving in the face of a man turned god. But he wasn't just glowing anymore. He was unraveling. White fire poured from his veins, splitting his skin in jagged lines. His body was no longer flesh but a container barely holding back a storm. And I knew, if he lost control, the Hydro 9 inside him would detonate with the force of every weapon ever built. It would end the war, but it would also end us. I stumbled through the chaos, trying to reach him. Plasma bolts whizzed past, drones crashed like falling meteors, but none of it mattered anymore. All I could see was his silhouette in the blinding light, flickering like a dying star. "Stop!" I shouted, forcing the word out of my raw throat. "You'll kill everyone." His head snapped toward me. For a heartbeat, I thought he didn't recognize me. His eyes were pure white, glowing holes in his skull, and his voice when he spoke was like a chorus of echoes. "Everyone is already dead. They just don't know it yet." The words hit me like a blade. This wasn't the survivor we'd saved from the ruins. This wasn't the man who had laughed on rooftops and promised fire. This was Hydro 9 speaking through him. But somewhere in that storm, I had to believe he was still there. The others screamed for me to run, to hide, to let the army and the monster tear each other apart. But Juno's voice was in my head, sharp and steady as ever. "We don't run. We stand." And so I did. I ran straight toward him. The heat seared my skin, my lungs burning with every breath. My body wanted to collapse, to curl away from the blinding energy, but something deeper drove me forward. Maybe it was madness. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was both. I reached him. His body vibrated with raw power, a furnace about to burst. Up close, I could see his face twisting, flickering between human and something else entirely. "Listen to me," I shouted, grabbing his arm. The contact scorched my hand, but I didn't let go. "You're stronger than this. You're stronger than it. Don't let Hydro 9 decide who you are." For a moment, nothing. Just a white blaze and the sound of the world ending. And then his face softened. His mouth trembled. I can't." he whispered, voice cracking through the godlike echo. It's too much. Yes, you can, I begged. My grip tightened even as the fire burned deeper into my flesh. Because this isn't the day Hydro 9 wins. This is the day we turn their weapons into life. Do you hear me? This is our day. His chest heaved. His light pulsed. And then, with a roar that shook the ruins, he seized my wrist. If I fall, he said, you finish it. Before I could answer, he released all of it. The explosion wasn't fire. It wasn't sound. It was light, pure, endless light that swallowed the battlefield whole. My body was hurled back into the rubble. For a moment, I thought I was dead. But then I opened my eyes. The battlefield was silent. The soldiers were gone. Their machines melted into twisted skeletons of steel. The drones littered the ground like broken toys. The sky itself seemed clearer, bluer, as if the storm had passed forever. And at the center of it all was him, or what was left of him. He stood tall for a moment, glowing faintly, his body charred and cracked but still him. His eyes found mine, no longer white, no longer burning, just human. He smiled, and then he collapsed into ash, the wind carrying him away like dust. Silence reigned. The survivors gathered slowly, their faces pale, their eyes wide with awe and fear. We had won, but not because of weapons, not because of armies. Because one man had dared to drink destruction itself and turn it into sacrifice. The world would remember him as a monster, maybe even as a god. But I knew the truth. He was just human, and maybe that was enough. Weeks later, as we moved through the fractured cities, whispers followed us. Some called us saviors. Some called us cursed. But one thing was certain, Hydro 9 was no longer feared as a weapon. It was remembered as the day humanity refused to be destroyed. The day we drank the weapons meant to kill us. The day we lived. I looked at my hands, faintly glowing in the night, and thought of Juno, of the survivor, of all the choices that had brought us here. And I repeated the words that had haunted me since the beginning. Only this time, they carried a different weight. We weren't supposed to survive this. But because we drank the weapons, we became unstoppable.